So thank you guys for all coming back. I hope you guys all got a little refreshment. That last panel was exciting. I heard a lot of comments saying we've learned things we hadn't heard before. It's really interesting, like I was saying before the break, how a lot of these systems and creators have been using these things for a different time, maybe not digitally, but especially protocol art. They've created these systems to sort of maximize their outputs in different ways. Now we're going to think about outputs in other ways. We have two amazing panelists now. We have Seth Goldstein as well as Def Beef. They're going to take us through a little bit about what they're up to, but also thinking about the role of the artist. What are these outputs? Is there an emphasis on craft? What are these other types of things that we have going on in a more focused sort of way? So please enjoy. And without further ado, Def Beef and Seth Goldstein. Thank you.
Thank you, Justin. Thank you all for coming. You're in for a brief treat. This could be a 3-day conversation, but we only have 30 minutes. Def Beef.
Hi.
He's rare to see him in person. This is the third time we've been together physically.
Yeah, it's hard to believe. It's been a few years since hash marks, right? And then
4 years ago,
yeah.
New York City, at the height of that NFT thing that we all are surviving through.
It wasn't the height, it was after the crash. It was 2022 in the summer.
2022 in the summer. I still believed at the time. I was in denial. We were in New York. We had a very fancy gallery on Worcester Street for Bright Moments. And we had a panel conversation, and I invited you, and you spoke. And we talked about time-based art, time-based media. 2 years later, maybe, we ended up in the end of the world in Patagonia.
That's right. It was 2 years later. And then since then, this is the first time I've seen you since. But those 3 times that I've traveled have been 3 of the 5 times that I've traveled in the past 5 years. So,
including here.
Including here, yeah.
Who here was in Patagonia for hash marks?
That's a strong showing.
Okay, 10%.
Yeah.
10% of the people that went to Patagonia are here out of the 75 people. So, the subject here is simply a craft in the age of AI. And there's probably nobody that we'd associate less, or I would associate less with AI than you.
Associate less with AI. Okay, well, I'm going to say, I get the question a lot of whether...
It's not a diss.
No, that's fine.
And it's not a compliment
I think it's
either,
a good way to open it, that I must be, because I work as a blacksmith. It's part of some of the activities that I've done over the past 15 years, and I still involve that in my practice. And people wonder if I'm against AI because I'm doing, a very handmade craft, and if this is a reaction against that. I think that it plays in, but I'm not. I just want to start by saying that, I'm not against any of that. This is not a John Henry story. If people know the folk hero John Henry.
Can you share?
Can I share about? Okay, so John Henry is an American.
Not the owner of the Boston Red Sox.
No, American folk hero who may have been a real person, but basically symbolizes they were a laborer on the railroad, and there was a death match between him versus the machine of driving, railroad spikes in, and his heart gave out and he died. So that, today with the technological landscape that we're in, there's people are feeling a lot of maybe the same feelings, kind of fear, and there's different reactions to this. And one way is to kind of to take that stance, but that's not what I'm doing. I'm interested in craft for other reasons. I think all ways of making art are certainly valid. I believe that according to the official definition of protocol art, I think I've made protocol art. And I use computers, obviously, and I've made work about AI. I haven't spent a lot of time using the systems to the extent that many people have. So anyways, just to set the stage a bit.
while people were on break, we started talking a little bit about the last panel, and Jordan from ArtBlocks talked about algorithms and unique outputs coming out of algorithms, and well, isn't that protocol art?
I think that I had a good conversation with Primavera last night, so I wanted to know what the difference
As one does.
between yes between systems art and protocols. And so I think that she's pretty rigorous in her definition with regards to the instantiation part of it, and that the instantiation has to have enough leeway for people to make creative interpretations. I think writing a generative art algorithm that you run many times and it gives you different outputs maybe is not really protocol art in the strictest sense, because you don't have somebody doing a creative interpretation. I think that things like musical scores, especially say a jazz lead sheet, would be more akin to a protocol, because there's openness in how you interpret it, but it's clearly, you know, an instance of the same instantiation. Yeah, I mean, personally, I feel that it is kind of, you know, it's kind of it's a narrower formalism than I would like to subscribe to. I'm kind of more like an open-ended systems guy. Like, where does remixing fit in? You know, that it's not going to be necessarily follow the rules of the protocol, but like you have systems that morph and change and transform enormously. And so I don't know if we need to categorize those things, but that's some of the thoughts that in the brief time that I've thought about this.
So I think many people know you as a blockchain artist, right? I think you helped. I remember you helping Snowfro with a CryptoPunks contract or something.
Yeah, in the summer of 2021. I mean, so if we go back a little bit, I think that there was CryptoPunks. There was some people were like, oh, well, it's not really sovereign because the data from the CryptoPunks image is not on chain. There's only a hash to the image. I don't personally subscribe to all that. I think it's fine. But there was a motivation to be able to, like, let's write it on chain and make it permanent. And Snowfro had been thinking about this for a long time. He'd bounced around ideas. Finally, in 2021, with all the attention that had come to it, it was time to sort of like do this, and he had ideas about how to do it. I read about them, and I thought I could help him improve them a bit to compress the information, to make it more efficient, to put on chain. So I worked with him and Matt and John to do that, and they deployed a contract that had the information on chain. Now, in retrospect, is that necessary? What does that mean, per se? I think it's interesting, the things about permanence on chain. I think it's more about like a desire for permanence, the idea of blockchain as like a immutable source of truth that will last for eternity, I think says a lot about humans. I think that that idea is seductive and very interesting. I don't think that it really practically works out that way, but yeah, just just some thoughts.
It sort of it leads into sort of this next trope, sovereignty, right? That we thought a lot about sovereignty in the NFT era, 21 to 24 or so, the immutable blockchain. 4 days ago, I was deep in Mythos, and today I'm not because they pulled it away. Talk about that. What does that say to you in this age of AI, where these models, the frontier models that are the most advanced, magical things in the world, can get yanked?
Okay, I'm going to try to connect this back to maybe like, you know, like very broad things. So when I think about the activities that I've done and why, in reflection, why I've been motivated to do them, like, I guess I'm best known for writing like low-level code that, you know, has no external dependencies and produces sound and animation. The reason why I started working that way was just as, you know, a reaction to the fast-moving pace of everything, right? Software being changed all the time, and like my sound audio recording projects that I made in say 2005, like I could no longer use them, right? And it just I didn't want to deal with all that. So I was like, okay, I'm gonna go back to basics and just do like this. I don't want to have to deal with the quicksand of things that are changing. It's okay for me to have my scaled down little self-contained world that's sovereign to me, and I can work at my own pace. Even if I have to leave for a few years to say like, look after a newborn, when I come back, I know everything still works. I don't have to reinstall my operating system or tools and things. Blacksmithing was kind of the same. The motivation for it was kind of the same. Like it's like this is a way of working where the tools have not really changed in a long time. I know that if I leave my garage and go back to it after 2 years of childcare, that I'm not going to have to reboot my anvil, so to speak. So there is a desire, I think, for autonomy, and I think that we see that broadly across things like blockchain, things like open source, things like the craft movements, and like, I guess now we're seeing it in plain view when you can be rugged by the U.S. government over your closed source model that's hosted somewhere else. Maybe people start thinking more. I would be, if I was going to be doing anything with AI models, I would really want to look into open source local models and see what that's all about. That would be the ethos and the communities that I would be interested in.
The next word is touch, right? And maybe you can talk a little bit about the 010 exhibit that hopefully we will all get to see over the coming days. There are glitch box and oscilloscopes, and also these little square metal, stainless steel sculptures.
Not stainless, but yes, they're
Yes.
steel or iron.
Not
Yeah.
stainless.
Yeah. They will rust.
They will rust. Called hash marks. And when I think about that experience, and maybe you can kind of tell us about the protocol of hash marks, it was fundamentally tactile, right? My first, as my participating in it was going down the road in Calafate, months before, and finding a giant boulder and saying, that's where we're going to have this experience. And that experience was not, I think we called it on-chain, offline. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Sure. So the tactile dimension is it's been on my thoughts a lot, and it's been important to me. I'll weave that in here with answering some of those questions that you said. Do you want me to explain hash marks? Okay.
Just because I think we're going to be able to see it.
Sure.
Right?
Okay, yeah.
See the actual objects.
Okay, so hash marks are a collection of 100 small iron forged talismans that I made by hand. They are linked in a clever way, cryptographically, to tokens on chain that exist on chain, but they're encrypted. So you can't see them, but there is a code that is engraved on the back of each of the physical items that connects in a strange way that allows people to magically reveal the digital token that exists on chain. So we went to Patagonia for a ceremony in a very remote location next to a rock. More accurately, it's a glacial erratic, right? So this is a stone that's been carried from a far off place, and now it's in the middle of a field somewhere, and people used to marvel. They didn't know how it got there. That's why it's called an erratic. They didn't know about geological time. They didn't know about these things could happen. And people, we all went there, and I laid out this grid of 100 talismans, and everybody chose one and took it off to the far corners of the earth. This is the only time that they were all together, and will probably be the only time that they're all together. We have 10 people, or some odd 10 people here. It's a pretty good showing, but that's the only time. So there's a one-way process through time. This glacier erratic was carried here. It's never going back. We were there together. We all burst off. We're never going back to that state. A hash in blockchain is very easy to compute going forward, but you can't easily go back. And it's this principle that allows you to have a blockchain at all, right? The idea that you can, it's a one-way, it's a trapdoor, it's one way. So there's themes that go together with that. Now, there's a duality between the physical and then the purely virtual, and I like that tension, and that comes forward in I think in a bunch of my work. The tactile dimension of hash marks is the weight of it, that you can feel it, even that you can smell it, is a dimension that you don't get in virtuality in any sense. Like, to me, when I think, if you wear a VR headset, your sight and your hearing is easily fooled, right? We have perfect resolution. We have like audio at least, perfect, right? Like there's no, you can't tell the difference. Visually, it's extremely strong. And now with generative media, the question about like, what is real? And it's blurring these lines. Now, tactile interfaces are incredibly crude. You're not gonna fool your tactile interface, and they're not getting better. There's like some limits. Why is that? They seem to be resistant to virtuality. Until you have a brain implant, the tactile sense seems like it's resistant to virtuality. And I think that makes it special and just worth thinking about and important. So in some of my recent work, I've been making sculptures that are interactive and have very strong tactile elements with like weird controls, like levers and knobs and sliders that are all hand forged and are vernacular and not what you would see every day, and you have to be there and experience it and touch it and feel it. And so I have some sculptures in 010 that have this tactile interface that allow you to manipulate digital systems that make sound and animation.
Thank you. We have 5 minutes left. Let's pick a good one here.
Let's argue.
Let's argue. Is prompting a craft? Deaf beef.
Okay, all right. So Seth talked, and we had some good discussion about this.
Ask first.
Okay.
Raise your hand. Raise your hand if you think prompting an AI model is a craft. Raise your hand if you don't think it's a craft. You can raise your hand twice. Okay.
Okay. All right. Well, that's a lot of people.
Now you know
favor the
what home
craft.
stadium we're in.
So I'll start right off. Then we'll just like go for the jugular, right? So craft, I think, as commonly understood, is like I'm not trying to say that prompting does not involve skill, that you can still share in the prestige of the associations with things being a craft. We can say the craft of anything, right? The craft of writing, the craft of whatever, you pick it, and certainly you can be skilled at it. Now the other way, the pushback is that if we associate craft, if we have a definition of craft that's maybe more closer to how William Morris and John Ruskin were thinking of craft in the arts and crafts movement in reaction to the Industrial Revolution, there are political and social and historical dimensions to craft. I can't really speak like really authoritatively about all these things, but you can go and research them, maybe using an LLM, you can prompt for it. But so those dimensions, it's really hard to say that prompting has those same dimensions, right? And certainly prompting is, in the future could have all those dimensions. It's very new, but to me, it doesn't have those right away. And I'm not saying that you can't make art using prompting, or that prompting is interesting, or that you can't be good at prompting. But I think that I'd make the distinction that with the definition of craft, those important dimensions, someone's going to have to convince me on that. Can you do it?
I believe prompting is a craft. I believe that just like poetry is a craft, and that sometimes it's not how many words you write, but how few words and what you choose. And I do think it has political dimensions, clearly with these models getting pulled based on counter-espionage uses, but
So poetry connects to a whole history of poetry. and poets who are people, and the times that they've lived in, and the reasons why they've written poems and so forth, right? So you have the same thing for traditions of manual labor, right? Like, I mean, the iconic example is like, you know, working with metal or textiles or clay or anything like that, because those are, there's the traces of those histories that are literally visible in the objects. And so those parts of it, it's really hard to say that at this time that prompting has anything like that. It certainly is something that you can be skillful at, right?
The prompting has anything like that in what regard?
What's the history of prompting, right? And like, how does it critically engage with those histories? Oh, we have a question.
No, we have an answer, actually.
Okay, we have an answer. Okay. Sure.
May I? Wait, no, I was half kidding. Can I? Thank
Make
you.
it, make
Hi.
it good.
I'm sorry, Pi. Well, I mean, the first ones that come to mind are John Cage's prompts or Saul Lewitt's prompts. So we've been
There we
accepting
go.
prompting as art for at least almost a century at this point.
Okay. All right. Point taken.
Sam. Hello, Grace.
Hey, Seth. I think it may or may not be craft. It depends on what you're prompting. It's like saying painting is a craft. Okay, I can draw this. Is it painting? Is it a craft? I can go and prompt, say, fuck you to this thing. Is it a craft? I don't know. It depends on the prompting and the content. It's like saying it's NFT art. Well, it depends on the content of the NFT. NFT is the envelope.
I'll just throw in there, I've only been thinking about this for a little while, so it's good we're having a discussion, but like the politics of labor is probably a pretty big point in this, and so that complicates things, I think.
And then one more voice.
I do feel you did bring up poetry, right? And I do feel like poetry works by kind of compressive ambiguity, whereas I would say that protocols and systems and prompting works by executable instructions, but then these are not necessarily mutually exclusive things. Something that's imperative can also be poetic, right? And so navigating, I think Saul Lewitt's and Yoko Ono's and John Cage's, you know, Rosalind Krauss picked this up, that, you know, generative art and promptology, if you will, continue the lineage of fluxes.
And I like this notion of traces of histories and objects. I think that's really lovely as well that you said. So, any final words to leave us with?
Seth, if you have any, but I mean, I think this opens a conversation. We'll talk more later, right?
Yeah, there's a lot more we can say. but
As
I think we
as you guys started, this 30 minutes could have been 3 days. So, anyways, if you have more thoughts, please share with Seth and Def Beef. What a privilege to have you guys here and just to have a lovely conversation. We really appreciate it. We're gonna have a 5-minute break, but I am a big proponent too of children learning how to write haikus rather than long prose. So, at any rate, take a time and create a poem outside or stay inside. We'll be with you in 5 minutes prompt, about 12:35. Thank you so much.
No pun intended.
Thank you. That was great.